Hello and welcome into the Devil Source Postgame show. I'm Sammy Miller alongside Chris Cartman following ASU's season opening 40-3 win over NAU. Chris, what were your thoughts on this initial win?
Of course, ASU took care of its business, and you knew that ASU was probably going to win this game handily, a 25-point favorite. But that said, I thought it was a reasonably impressive game. Not too many disciplinary issues, penalties, only 4 in the game. Emory Jones looked the part. I thought he was as advertised, I would say. ASU's defense did a good job of rallying to the football and keeping everything in front of it. Xavier Valade, Daniel Ngata looked good in the run game. So overall, you have to say that this was at least a B+ to an A- performance for ASU in the season opener. Are we surprised? Not necessarily, but it was a good start for the Sun Devils.
And tonight was Emory Jones' first game putting on that Sun Devil uniform. And even though he didn't throw any touchdowns, he himself had 2 rushing touchdowns. What were your thoughts on his performance tonight?
Yeah, so we knew that he had that dual threat capability. There was a lot of RPO actions and things that got him the opportunity to get the ball into the perimeter. I thought that he had a live arm, and he was reasonably accurate. There weren't a lot of bad decisions from the pocket. One of the things that probably ASU fans liked was that he hung in there, took a couple hits as he was waiting for receivers to come open, spread the football around relatively well. He missed a deep shot opportunity to Zeke Freeman in the first half that he probably wants to have back, and maybe there was 1 or 2 other throws, one to Gio Sanders that was a little bit off. But overall, he was efficient. There weren't really jeopardy balls, and I think he did a good job of managing the offense. So that's a very good overall start.
And it's no surprise that ASU utilized that run game. Xavier Valade and Daniel Ngata had 2 very strong games. So how do you think that run game panned out tonight and just games moving forward?
That's their bread and butter. That's what they're going to rely upon, of course. And Valade, no surprise that he had 116 yards against a team like NAU. The holes were open. They ran off tackle. They ran inside very effectively. He's a talented back, so you wouldn't expect anything sort of less than him going out and having this type of performance. I thought Daniel Ngata looked pretty explosive as well. Between them, that takes a lot of pressure off of both Emory Jones and ASU's receivers, and so there was harmony that kind of went into this, and that's important to also keep guys fresh, because when Valade was at Wyoming, even though he was a workhorse back, had he been injured, that would have really been a problem for them. I think that when they're playing in 100+ degrees in the opener and guys have fresh legs and they're able to kind of stay in a good frame of mind going into Oklahoma State, which is a much tougher task, that's a big development for the Sun Devils, but no surprise that they ran the ball well.
And Jones not only utilized those running backs like you just mentioned, but also the wide receiving group. He used all of them, and they may not have had a lot of catches, but still utilized all 8 of them, essentially.
Yeah, you're right. So Elijah Badger, 4 catches to lead the team, but we kind of said going into this game on the podcast that nobody's probably going to be far outsized from the rest of the group. Fans are probably going to be excited to see that Messiah Swinson had multiple catches over the middle. That sort of picks up where Curtis Hodges left off, and Swinson really hadn't done much as a receiver at Wyoming, so that's a positive sign. But Badger leading the team in catches. Andre Johnson was out there, and he looked pretty good, I would say. Gio Sanders ran some routes and was effective. They got all of their scholarship players pretty much out there. As I said, even Zeke Freeman had a big play opportunity that was missed by Emory Jones. But the timing and the rhythm of the passing game was actually quite good for a season opener, and that portends well for the future for this team, because that was one of the biggest question marks going into the season.
Now, there was an injury tonight. Joey Ramos had that high ankle sprain, which kind of hindered that offensive line. How do you think they adapted in the game tonight, but also it could affect future games?
So right, because Des Holmes, the Penn State transfer, was already out with this game with an undisclosed issue. I've heard that he's probably going to be back for Oklahoma State, which would be a big deal, because high ankle sprains, they tend to be several weeks before somebody's able to be recovered from that. And now they're sort of 2 tackles now sort of in question, and tackle was already the biggest sort of question mark on ASU's offensive line, especially on the left side, where we saw Isaiah Glass and Emmett Boley split a lot of series, and then after that Ramos injury, they moved Glass to the right side and Emmett Boley played on the left side. That's probably what they would do moving forward at Oklahoma State, but I thought NAU did have some some ability to exploit the edges in their pass rush. In fact, that's what happened on one of the plays where Ramos got hurt. And so that's something that they're going to have to sort of shore up. Their interior pass protection, I thought, was actually quite good overall. We're going to have to see kind of what this looks like for the recovery process. But if ASU does get Des Holmes back next week, that would sort of offset the loss of Ramos for the next couple weeks.
And now moving over to the defensive side of the ball, ASU only allowed NAU 3 points the entire game. So why do you think their defense was so effective tonight?
Well, first they stopped the run. That's what you have to be able to do initially. NAU had 23 rushing yards on 23 attempts. That is a lights out solid performance because they have a big back and they were expected to be a run heavy team that was going to be, at least decently okay, even in this opener against the Sun Devils. Remember, this is an NAU team that beat Arizona last year, but they had nothing doing. ASU had 6 tackles for loss. A lot of that was in the run game. Some of it was rallying to screens on the perimeter. I thought Merlin Robertson and Kyle Soley played really well. Robertson, lighter, leaner, more athletic. We talked about that really kind of throughout the preseason. Up front, even though ASU doesn't have a couple of key guys, and Michael Matus injury, right, and Nesta Jade Silvera was kind of rounding back into form after missing some action in camp. I thought they did a very good job at the point of attack. Joe Moore, Trevezmore, Omar Norman-Lott, they all played quite well.
Now, the Lumberjacks did have some pass completions, but that still didn't result in touchdowns. So why do you think that part of their defense did so well as well?
Anytime that you give up 20 catches, but for fewer than 100 yards, that is a very good indication that an opposing passing offense didn't do anything against you. I think they had 97 yards for the game. As you said, no touchdowns. Only one red zone trip on the night, which did not result in points because they had that missed hold on the field goal attempt. There was a lot of concerns because ASU had Tamarcus Davis out with a knee injury, Jordan Clark out with a knee injury. That's 2 of their top 5 or 6 defensive backs, and they played pretty much almost entirely nickel defense in this game, with DJ Taylor getting almost all those reps as a nickel with Clark out for the first time in his career. He had the tipped ball that ended up in the hands of Chris Edmonds, which could have been a pick 6 if not for the Omar Norman-Lott hold on the return, one of the 2 pick 6s that were negated due to penalties by ASU. But Ro Torrance played well. They split the other side between Ed Woods and Keon Markham. I thought they did reasonably well overall. Corey Bethley, Keon Markham both played well. Keon Markham had the first pick 6 that didn't count because of the Anthony Cooper offsides. Can't have those penalties, right? ASU had but only 4 penalties on the night compared with 13 in their season opener last year. So even though they were costly, it sort of is an indication that they're trending in a better direction at the outset of this season. Only 2, I think, on offense when they had so many procedural penalties last season. So a lot of sort of positive signs that you could take from the night. NAU, very bad passing attack. So we're going to learn a lot more when ASU goes to Stillwater a week from Saturday. But you have to say that this was a quite a good ASU defensive performance.
And for these Sun Devil fans, ASU came into Sun Devil Stadium. They're 1-0. That was their job. They got it done. But for these fans, what could they take away from this game?
So look, if ASU didn't blow out NAU, that's the only outcome that would have been a surprise, that would have been a disappointment, right? So yeah, I mean, ASU, just what I said earlier, they handled their business. They looked pretty good on both sides of the ball. It wasn't a tough test. It wasn't an opponent that should have really challenged the Sun Devils. But when you look at the secondary, which was sort of a question mark coming into the season, and how well they actually looked at not giving up big plays or having breakdowns, and then seeing kind of the offensive line protect Emory Jones reasonably well, open up holes in the run game, and Emory Jones definitely looked like it wasn't any sort of a fallback from Jaden Daniels, maybe even better than what Jaden Daniels delivered over the last couple years, plus the run game performance and what Messiah Swinson offered, and even Jalen Conyers at tight end. I think that all of these things are very good foundational pieces that give the Sun Devils a pretty good chance of having maybe even a performance that overall could exceed what the general public's perception and certainly the media's perception of this team is.
And the Sun Devils, they have a tough schedule ahead of them. They're going to be heading to Stillwater, Oklahoma next week when they face the number 12 Oklahoma State. So it's definitely going to be an interesting one to watch. But that's it for us tonight. And make sure to continue to follow along to sundevilsource.com for a lot more coverage.